Abai and Rava said together, the two of them, Ani Bodel Mahem Korbain Hash Mashus. The Noachala Kadosh Aleiko. They said that he doesn't separate them during Leilos Mashas.
No, he doesn't separate from them.
Yes.
Oh, that's what you said, sorry.
What did I say? Yeah.
But you said it doesn't separate them.
No, from them. It's like Abdallah, you said yesterday, right? During this period, and therefore Kodesh doesn't come down upon them.
We explained, based on Rashi, principally, that because during that time is when it has to become a sukkah, and becoming a sukkah brings the kedusha. If he doesn't allow it to become part of the sukkah, which is what he's now made a declaration, he doesn't want to separate from it, meaning he wants to keep his direct connection with these objects, and they don't become part of the sukkah. If they never became part of the sukkah, of course, they don't get the kedusha of the sukkah. Only something that's actually part of the sukkah becomes. So Rashi brings in the word that we've had numerous times in this sugya, bittul. Was he mevatel it to the sukkah or not? By not separating from it, he's showing that he's not mevatel it to the sukkah. Therefore, they never became part of the sukkah. Not part of the sukkah, no kedusha. The only thing that becomes kadosh is what becomes part of the sukkah. Not part of the sukkah, not kadosh. Okay?
And so the Kadosh doesn't settle on them, it cuts Katsai Shevet the Shevet for 7 days. Right? Shemamahu.
So pushed aside, pushed over for 7 days.
Yeah. So, Shani Marve. So what is this case?
Mashna Miha.
Omar?
Shna Miha.
Okay, so what is this case?
What's the difference? Mashno means what's the difference? Why are we saying the sukkah everything in the sukkah becomes kadosh for all 7 days if you didn't make a tanai? How's that different than the following, where we don't say that idea of all 7?
Okay, so here's an example. Tamar, Rish Sheva et Robim, the Shevet Hayamim. So he separates 7 etrogim for 7 days. Each day gets an etrog. Rav Ko Echad Yotza, and Rav says that each and every one of them, you're yotza with him individually.
What does that mean?
That that each one brings, you fulfill the mitzvah with each and every one of them. You don't need one for the full period.
Right.
Altar, and you eat it immediately.
Immediately after what?
After using it.
Each day you use it, and then right after the mitzvah you can eat it.
Right. Ravasi Amar Kol Echad Yotzeh Va'ochela Le'macha. He says, it's Rav Yossi Asi, that you fulfill the mitzvah with each and every one of them, and that you eat it on the following day.
Okay.
Okay.
There is a machlokas Rav and Ravasi. If you've designated an esrog for each and every day, does it become pushed away for at least that one day? Rav says what?
Says you can eat it on the day.
So therefore it's not been pushed away for the entire day. Only up until the mitzvah. But Rav Asi says you can only use it the following day, because that same day that it was pushed aside for the mitzvah, it remains pushed aside for the mitzvah the whole day. It's like the regular case of muksa, where we say since it was pushed away at the beginning, it's pushed away for the entirety.
So it means that you're not using these are not muktzah, right?
They're a type of muksa. It's called muksa machmas mitzvah.
You can't.
For the sake of the mitzvah, you pushed it away from your normal usage.
So you're not allowed to use it.
So according to Rav Asi, he can't use, whatever day he happens to use a particular esrog for the mitzvah, that day he still can't use it, because that day it was pushed aside.
But tomorrow.
But tomorrow he could use it. Rav says no, even that same day he could use it. It's only pushed aside till the mitzvah. He only needs it for the mitzvah, so why should it be also for more than just the mitzvah? Rav says you can immediately, la'alter, you can immediately eat it.
Hashem, miss ku, Laila, Milamin. So over there,
Where's over there?
with
case
the
of-
case of the etrogim.
Okay, so that's wrong. And where we find that you can use it, if not the same day, at least the next day. You don't have to wait all 7 days. You know why?
It was the night was separate from the day.
Every night, all the nights are separate from the days. What does that mean they're separate from the days? Since what has pushed us away from me? The mitzvah has pushed it away from me.
The etrog can only be done during the day. It cannot be done at night.
Right. So if I push it aside for the mitzvah,
Yeah.
then it has to be available for the mitzvah. But as soon as the mitzvah's over, I don't have to have it be available anymore. It doesn't need to be available. So since the nights separate from the day, i.e. the mitzvah ends at sundown, so to speak, so there from then on I can use it, because that's all I needed it for. I only need it for the mitzvah. As soon as the mitzvah's over, I can use it. So that's true in case of esrog. Every day, at the end of the day, the mitzvah's over. So the dedication to the mitzvah is over as well. No longer dedicated to that mitzvah, because it's no longer needed for that mitzvah. This is over. However,
Wachai Yoma, the mitzvah, Alfai Nefsha. So,
in that case, every single
day is a mitzvah which is separate.
Ba'api nafsha means by itself, independently.
Itself.
Here, the law nifsaku laila miyamim. But here, the days and the nights are not separated.
They're not separate because
All of huyimim ba'echada. All of them are considered one day. Yoma
arichta,
arichta dami. And it's one long day. Considered one long day.
like one day. It's like. Dami means it's like. So you have ke, that already makes it like. Ke chada yoma arichta dami. It's similar to one long day. What does that mean? The mitzvah of Sukkah starts at the beginning of Sukkot and actually
So it's all the way through 7
goes
days.
all the way through.
Yeah.
So if I've dedicated something to that mitzvah, then it remains dedicated to that mitzvah for as long as the mitzvah is shaykh. Well, is there any moment that stopped being shaykh to the mitzvah of Sukkot? No, there's no moment when I can say, oh, now it's not a time when I have to sit in a sukkah. Now it's not a time when I have to sleep in a sukkah. Every moment is some moment which should be dedicated to the mitzvah of Sukkot. So therefore any object which I've dedicated to that mitzvah will continue to be off limits during that whole period of time.
So my word mafsika is me. Mafsika means to stop.
Excuse me?
Was mafsike lanos.
Separate. Over there you separate the day and the night, but here the night and the day are not separate. Consider each one by itself, right? Not very nafshi. Where does that expression come from, nafsh? Nafsh.
It's like a Hebrew expression, bifnei atzmo. In Hebrew you say bifnei atzmo. Literally in front of itself. What?
The camera is on.
Yes, it is. Why?
No, I just wondered.
Maybe you should sit over here so you end up on the phone.
I'm on contract to 3rd Century Fox.
You're being very foxy about this. I think he showed an interest now. Let's get you on the screen.
I was looking for the red dot, I couldn't see it.
Can't see the red dot?
I can't see the screen.
Well, there might be a theory that you need new glasses.
That's possible.
Okie doke. Shall we see the Rashis?
Yep. Abaye, Baraba, the Omer Travayo, Abaye and Rabba, they both say, Taloy Dami, the Sukkah. They're not similar to Sukkah, the Indian Tanai, concerning making a condition.
Right.
The Alpha the Batle, the Gabe, even though they're battled by themselves,
No. Legaba.
the Gabal.
To it. What's the it feminine?
Refer to Sukkah?
Mm-hmm.
The Chi Mahani Tanai, the Chi, when the Tanai helps, the Omer, the Oy Yod, anybody of him. When it's still Erev Yom Tov, I'm going to separate from them. Yos Kochi v'zuchus b'hem. Yos Kochi means to be, Kochi means my strength, and my zuchusi means my merits. B'hem,
The idea of ownership.
ownership.
You have a koach in something, you have a merit in something that shows ownership and control. So he's made a declaration. He does not want to separate from having that control in the object.
Lidlon kol shahois. What does Lidlon kol shahois mean?
Do you know any of those words?
Lidlon means a take.
Take them.
Kol shahois.
Shahut.
The duration.
Correct.
Baruch shal ben hashmos shal Erev Yom Tov. Length of ben hashmos shal Erev Yom Tov.
That's what he's made a declaration.
It's going to separate from them, and
I don't want to separate from them.
don't want to separate from them.
All the Bein Hashmashos. I want to keep that control. I want to keep my control of these objects to have the right to take them, should I so choose.
Shal Erev Yom Tov. Look up Shas Bias Hayon. Time that the day comes, when Yom Tov comes, Shahoise Kedusha Tzricha L'chol Arayim. The Kedusha needs to fall on them, Lo Chala. But it doesn't fall. It's more not separating from them. It's going to take them when he wants.
If I didn't separate from them, did they become part of the sukkah?
No.
No. Because you say that's how it works. To become part of the sukkah, it has to be bottled to the sukkah. To be bottled to the sukkah, I have to say it's no longer my object. It's complete. It's like by chametz. What do we say about chametz?
Chametz,
Dust and ashes.
It should be like,
dust.
that's what bittul is. I'm saying that it has nothing to do with me anymore. I have no rights to it. I have no usage of it. I have nothing. To me, it's like dirt. Okay?
Fichach loy hukza. Therefore, it doesn't become pushed away.
Because, let's just review that idea. It never became part of the sukkah. Right?
Yep. Because he didn't separate.
Therefore, two things didn't happen. There's no kedusha on it.
Not separate.
It's also not pushed away from me.
No muktzah.
So that's the whole idea. I didn't separate from it. The whole idea of muktzah is pushed away from me. It never got pushed away. I held on to it for dear life. That was my declaration was I'm holding on to this. It never got pushed away. I held on to it.
Aber Eitzei Sukkah.
Atzei sukkah.
Eitzei Sukkah. The wood.
Till now we were talking about what? Not the wood of the sukkah, but rather the
branches.
Decoration.
The what?
Decorations.
Don't be so modest, Shabbatai. A little louder so that everyone can hear you.
The bananas. The peaches.
Eitzei Sukkah is referring to the wood. Eitzei is wood.
That's what we're not talking about. We're going back to that subject.
So, subject of the wood, actual walls.
Right.
Schach.
Right?
Einu yachol lishonos alehem. Tonight. He's not able to make a condition on them,
Right.
on the wood.
Because what are you going to say? I'm not separating from them? But you did. You made it into a sukkah. You want it to be a sukkah.
Tonight is there, this tonight.
No, you can't make this tonight. Can't do it. Why?
Shahar al korchach yavdil mahem ben hashmashos. Chacham is forced to say, he's forced to separate from them ben hashmashos. He's forced to.
We're forced to say that he will become separated from them at Ben Shmashos. Can't say I don't want to separate from these walls. He's for sure separate from the walls. Doesn't matter what he's saying. Imagine someone's in a car and like they're waving to you from the rear view window. You say, but I'm not separating from you. They're going. They're on their way. They're gone. You can't say you're not separated from them. You are. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Rashi adds a reason. Why is for sure I'm separated from these walls?
Because for Kedusha comes automatically.
No, he says another reason as well.
Shum de Seisa Ohala ben hashmashos. Because of his overall.
Because the question of destroying the walls of my structure, Ohel is like a structure, right? I have a structure here. If I want to take the wood, I'm really destroying the walls of the structure. Do I have a right to do that, Bein Hashmashos? He says no.
So,
If it's Bein Hashmashos already,
Safik Yom Tov.
it's Safek Yom Tov, right? So I can't take apart the walls. So therefore, I have to leave it there. I can't say, well, I want to take it. You have no right to take it anymore. It's already Yom Tov. At least it's a possibility that it's Yom Tov. That possibility makes it forbidden for you to take them. Therefore, what ends up happening...
Safik Yom Tov.
Therefore, what ends up happening is...
Chol Kedusha Alayha.
Yeah.
The Kedusha falls apart. Comes apart.
Right. You can't separate. You're for sure separated because you can't take it. So it's for sure separated from it. Therefore, the Kedusha falls upon this wood of the sukkah. Therefore, what?
By Kedusha Zu, from this Kedusha, Huktzah L'Shiva becomes pushed aside for the 7 days.
Right.
Yom Tov.
So now even if it falls down, I can't deal with that. I can't take it. It's already been pushed away. Okay? So that even though later on, let's say even if it, especially if it falls down, but even if it doesn't fall down, during Chol HaMoed I could take apart a sukkah. I'm allowed to take apart a sukkah Chol HaMoed, right? So what should be the problem? Let me take it apart when I can.
still
No,
yours.
it's already happened. It's already gone out of your reshus. It's already gone away from you. It's already been pushed away. Okay?
Yes.
It's like a lot of chain reactions here. Okay. Let's go on in the Rashis then.
Mashnami ha.
The Gemora ends up asking what? You just said that the wood of the sukkah, even the decorations, truthfully, if you didn't make the declaration that you're not separating from it, then what would end up happening? They would be muksa for all of 7 days. They would be usher to use all 7 days, right? So what's the difference between that and the esrogim?
That from the one means esrogim.
You know, from what we've just said. What's the difference between what we just said, where we said it's pushed away for all 7 days, and the esrogim, where we're going to see that they don't get pushed away for all 7 days?
The Lord Omer be'esrog, do not say be'esrog, the Mishum ben Hashmashos.
Kama. We don't say what happens to the esrogim is that the very first Bein Hashmashos does what?
It's
Litksoy Kol Shiva. That on account of the fact that the first Bein Hashmashos I couldn't use it, they get pushed away for all 7
Don't
days.
say that about esrog. Ela Mechad Yoma.
And maybe according to Rav Asi at least, according to Rav it's even less, but according to Rav Asi, the most you could say is what? That it gets pushed away.
For 1 day.
Right.
Mechi Asni Aleha.
L'chad Yoma. As long as you did make a Tanai for 1 day. Right? That's the case. He took 7 esrogim and he said each one of these 7 will be each one for a separate day.
And Ram will say immediately, right? Can you eat it?
You know what immediately means? Immediately after,
No.
after you used it for the mitzvah.
After he's been
When do you usually do the mitzvah of lulav?
First day,
What time of day?
morning.
Morning. Right. Maybe 8 o'clock, maybe earlier, depending what minyan go to.
10:30.
That's the way to do it. Have 10 o'clock, right? Have 10 o'clock, right?
Really? No. They're at 7 o'clock in the morning.
I'm talking about Shabbos.
Oh, sure.
Anywho, so we're saying with these esrogim that you did set aside for each day, as soon Rav Asi holds that you cannot use it the entire day it was set aside for. Let's see the next Rashi.
Okay.
The Itmar, it was said in a not a Beitsa, but the Amoraim. Right, this is all the Amoraim talking.
Hifrish Yotze Bar.
Hifrish, etc. That means he's relying on that you know the Gemora for the middle part of the sentence. What did it say in the middle part of the sentence that he's not quoting, but he wants you to be aware of?
Yotze Bar.
No, that's what he does quote. What is the Bechula standing for, though? The middle of part of the sentence that he's not quoting, you're supposed to know what it is, not
Hifrish Shiva Esrogim.
a separated 7 esrogim
Shiva Yomin.
for all 7 days. And he wanted separate to have each one used on a separate day.
Yep.
So we say, well, you know what happens? If Yotze Ba, as soon as he was Yotzi the mitzvah, Rashi says,
Yoima.
on
That
its day. The hay on the end makes it possessive. Its day. On its particular day, right? Each esrog has a different day. The first esrog I'm using on Yom Rishon. The second esrog I'm using on Yom Sheni. Once I'm Yotzi with it on its day, once I take the second esrog and I use it on the second day, 8 o'clock in the morning, or whenever it will be, then what?
Achlo Alta.
According to Rav,
Immediately.
And Rashi says,
Sava le-mitzvasa is kotze. It's mitzvah. It's push aside.
what?
Push aside. It's kotze means push aside. Right?
Yes, but I don't get the mitzvah part that you said.
Mitzvasa, it's mitzvah.
But what's li mitzvasa? What's that lama doing?
For. Sacred.
So I didn't hear that in your translation.
Mitzvasa for its
You're
mitzvah.
saying I didn't hear it?
I didn't say it.
It's possible.
Le mitzvasa for its mitzvah is kotze. It's pushed aside. It means designated.
So we say that in English we switch around the order. We say it was pushed away for the sake of its mitzvah. That's his shita, Rashi says. Savar means that's what he holds. And when Rashi says savar, he's usually putting his finger on the machlokas. That's what he holds. The other guy doesn't hold that. Right? Because you might wonder, even though for our Gemora's sake it's not so important what the real machlokas is, Rav and Ravasi, but it's still good to know, right? We still want to understand. Why does one say you could eat the esrog right away and the other say you have to wait till tomorrow? Rashi says, I bet you wanted to understand that because you're a Jew and you want to understand everything, part of the Gemora, right? Well, I'll tell you, in my opinion, says Rashi, the reason why, according to Rav, you can use it the same exact day, right as soon as you did the mitzvah, is because he holds, as opposed to his opponent, supposedly, that what does Rav hold? That this esrog was what? Pushed away for the sake of its mitzvah. That's what pushed it away. There's nothing else pushing it away. What's pushing it away? The mitzvah is pushing it away. It's like a Torah derech eretz. The Torah is saying, you wanted to use this for the mitzvah, therefore you have to have hands off. You know, leave your hands off of it till you do the mitzvah. Because the mitzvah is pushing it away. And therefore,
Nasis mitzvasa, it was made.
hooray,
Behold.
behold usually is used as what?
It's
Bringing your attention something. You know what the real word behold means?
meaning.
No, but in English, the word behold, you know what it really means?
Pay attention.
Actually looking, right? That's right, paying attention, but actually looking. And that's what they talk about. Oh, he beheld her beauty. He beheld the sunset. It means he's watching it. He's watching it happen. So when we say hooray, what we're really saying is behold, like pay attention to this fact. Like you said, look at this fact. It's like you're holding up the real piece of evidence that's the clincher. Okay? So what's the real clincher over here? You know why you can use it right away? Since the only thing that pushed it away is what? Rashi just said. What pushed it away? The mitzvah pushed it away. It's only pushed away for the mitzvah. I mean, it's really the mitzvah that pushed it away, so to speak. And therefore, v'harei, behold, so is what?
Nasis mitzvah was done.
As soon as its mitzvah was done, so there's nothing else pushing it away. It's like a magnet. A magnet pulls something towards itself, but you take the magnet away, it'll drop to the floor because nothing pulling it in that direction anymore. So if the only thing that's pushing away the esrog from your personal usage is that it's now supposed to be used for a mitzvah. As soon as the mitzvah's over, nasis mitzvah, so the mitzvah's been done, then we can say that it naturally went back to the man. Right? It was pushed away from him till the mitzvah's over. Then it goes back to him. Springs back to its original owner, as it were. But that's all Rav. And it seems like in this case it might possibly like Ravasi. I'm not sure, but that's to me it sounded like the Gemora is going in that direction of Ravasi. That what?
Ravasi on my yotze bo achor yotze with it.
And then, only then, what? You can only eat it tomorrow. Today, still off limits. Why? The mitzvah's done. Says Rashi.
Kevan, the is katzai, the ben hashmashos, since the mitzvah was pushed away from ben hashmashos,
Yeah.
is katzai, the kula yanas, for the whole day, even when the mitzvah.
So it's like the normal muksa, in other words. He's looking at it more of like a normal muksa. Normal muksa, we say, what? Look at what happened at ben hashmashos. Did it get pushed away ben hashmashos?
Yes.
Yes. If it got pushed away ben hashmashos, then that labels it already for the whole rest of the day. We're used to that idea on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. But make note of the fact that this here we're talking about Chol HaMoed even. He separated 7 esrogim, each one for a separate day. Most of those days are Chol HaMoed. And normally we don't think of something happening at Shkia on Chol HaMoed. But according to Rashi, that's the Pshat in Rav Asi, is that he's saying no. In this particular case, where he's designated each esrog for a different day, what we do look at what happens bein hashmashos of that particular day, even if it's a Chol HaMoed day. I don't care. The same thing applies. If muksa is a concept in this, which we say there's such a thing as a muksa for the mitzvah, then what happens to normal muksa happens to this as well. How do we judge normal muksa according to Rabbi Yehuda? We look at bein hashmashos. And whatever happens then, that's the story for the rest of Yom Tov, no matter what happens. He doesn't care what happens in the middle, right? Like we saw many cases where the thing became really permissible in the middle, but Rav Yehuda said it doesn't matter now that you could use it, but it's been pushed away for the whole of the day. So just like we're used to that concept in normal muksa, for those who hold a muksa like Rabbi Yehuda, so here also, if we're saying there's a concept of muksa for the mitzvah, it goes with the same halachas. That's what Rosh is saying. Whereas according to Rav, no, that might be true on regular muksa. You start to look at what happens at Shkia. But this isn't a regular muksa. This is a muksa that's only specially for the mitzvah. So what makes it muksa is the mitzvah. As soon as the mitzvah is over, why should there be any muksa? It's a little bit more like Rabbi Shimon's way of thinking. As soon as it becomes available, why not use it? You don't look at the beginning of the day as locking it into a certain label, but Rav Asi looks at it the other way. Okay, yeah, Vaha.
Alright. Okay, Vaha Atzei Sukkah, the wood of the sukkah. It's called sukkah itself.
Right, so now we're going to get back to that. Right? Because in the end of the day, whether you hold like Rav or Rav Asi, everybody agrees you can use this esrog the next day. So that's the real question that's the Gemora brought it down for. Why can you use an esrog either the same day or even the next day? It doesn't matter, but either way you're using it before the end of the 7 days. Why? By Atzei Sukkah we have a rule that what?
Nami also Kavan, the Asni Allahu, we know by him. He made it tonight.
That he wants to use them. Right? Now where did we see this, by the way? You know where we saw someone telling us this? In the first Beitsa. Remember the first Beitsa?
Yeah,
in the first Beitsa we had 4 halachas, remember? No. Beitsa.
Right?
No. There was a Beitsa up, yeah. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, yes, you're right. Kamei Rabbi Yochanan. But that's, he just brought us the Beitsa. He didn't create the Beitsa. He happened to know the Beitsa.
Shimon says that the schach and the sukkah are one, right? The summer.
Well, again, we have a, the first opinion in the Beitsa is sort of like our Mishnah. It says Atzei Sukkah is Asur, but someone to the Sukkah is Mutter. Comes Rabbi Shimon and says, you can even use
samach.
No, the Talmud Kama said you could use samach.
So you even use the Atzei Sukkah.
Even the Atzei Sukkah themselves, which the Gemora later says, how could that be? If it's on Yom Tov, how can you be taking apart a sukkah? So the Gemora said, no, it's talking about where it fell. Okay? Now, then we had a third halacha where we said, but if it's a sukkah of sukkahs on sukkah, then there's the kedusha element, then you can't use it even if it falls. Right? Because it's hektish. Right? But the Gemara said, but if you make a tanai, then it helps. But we had problems with that. What do you mean you can make a tanai to stop hektish from being chal? And even though now we saw with the ornaments of the sukkah we could do that, we could say I'm not separating from bein shmash, but Rashi pointed out you can't do that with the wood of the sukkah. You can't say I'm not separating from it during bein shmashos. Right? You have to separate from it because you can't take apart a sukkah on bein shmashos. So what did the Gemara say before? the fourth halacha about a Tanai helping, what did we end up saying? Rab Menashe Breda Rava.
Menashe Breda Rava.
He said, you know what that fourth case is talking about?
Just ain't some of the difference.
No, you're thinking about after the first Mishnah. But I'm talking about the Mishnah. I'm talking about the Beitsa. Once we brought down the Beitsa.
Talking about where it's bundled?
No, that was the Mishnah again. That was again someone explaining the Mishnah. We're not talking about the Mishnah. We're talking beyond that. Just beyond there, you yourself had noticed that somebody brought a Beitsa and sent it over to Rabbi Yochanan. That's what we're discussing now.
Talk about the hangings, the things inside.
What?
The nuts. The
No.
balls.
No.
No?
No. That was an afterthought. That was an afterthought. Let's remember the structure of the Gemora. We brought down the Beitsa that had 4 halachas. Can you locate that Beitsa? Yes. You don't have to read it to me. You just have to be aware of that Beitsa. You want to read it? Read it. If you don't want to read it, just be aware of it.
But the first one is not really take wood from the sukkah, but only from the sun.
Yes.
Even from the wood.
Yes.
As long as you make it.
Third halacha.
Third halacha is Shimon is Matzir.
That's the second halacha.
Then there's Reb Nachman by Yitzchak.
No. No. Shoving.
And they agree.
Why did you jump over the shoving? You don't like shoving? You don't like equality?
And they agree, Rabbi Shimon and the Tanakama agree that the sukkahs
Hachag, Bichag.
the sukkah itself, the mitzvah sukkah.
If we're talking about the kind of sukkah that's actually a sukkah of the Chag, a mitzvah-dika sukkah, during sukkahs,
it's also.
Then even Rabbi Shimon would say the Atzei sukkah are aser. Because of the Kedusha. Right, that the Gemora says later. Okay, that's halacha number 3. What's halacha number 4?
There's a question, right?
No, halacha number 4. After shavim.
Shimon is matir.
That's halacha 2. Then it says v'shavin after Rabbi Matir. Rabbi Shimon Matir says v'shavin, right?
Yeah.
Shavin is what number?
3.
I need 4. That's before or after 3?
So then
number 4 is before or after 3?
It's after.
So don't go before. Go
so
after.
Nachman by Yitzchak.
No.
No, that's not it.
No.
Oh, there's a case of Ma'aseh Shimon Menair.
No. Read after v'shavin.
The double dots.
I want to hear v'shavin.
V'shavin Sukkos Achag Asra.
That's number 3.
In his not
What's that?
he made it to 9.
What's that? Is that part of the Beitsa?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's not part of the Beitsa? V'shavin is part of the Beitsa. What happened to stop the Beitsa? You think you see Aramaic or something that tells you that the Beitsa ended?
No.
So why would you think the Beitsa ended? What?
I got confused.
Confused with what?
I thought
You were just reading the Beitsa. V'shavin is part of the Beitsa. Then you get to V'him Hisne Aleha. Why would that not be part of the Beitsa? The only time you start to think something's not part of a Beitsa is if you see Aramaic after a Beitsa, you say, oh, it must be the Beitsa stopped already. But is this Aramaic? V'him Hisne Aleha? No. Hakol Tano, is that Aramaic?
No.
No. So is that still part of the Beitsa?
Yes.
Yes. So why did you think it wasn't?
I'm confused with the Aramaic.
What Aramaic? Where?
Tanoi.
Where's Aramaic?
There's no Aramaic.
So why would you get confused with Aramaic? There is no Aramaic.
So Shimon Matir.
That's a new thing, which is going back and discussing one earlier aspect of the Beitsa. We finish the Beitsa, then we repeat Rabbi Shimon Matir because we're going to discuss that aspect of the Beitsa. But we finished that was a finish of the Beitsa. That shows you we finished the Beitsa. That's another sign you finish the Beitsa. If you have a repetition of a phrase that was in the Beitsa, you know why it's repeating it? Because it wanted to discuss it. That's a good sign that you finished the Beitsa. That the Gemara is now repeating an earlier excerpt of the Beitsa to talk about it. But before that, it's all Beitsa. Okay, so again, what are the four halachas of this Beitsa?
Fourth plus is the fourth one. He's not allowed, if you made it tonight, I'll call if you tonight, what goes according to the condition.
And what do you think that means? That it's all according to the condition, it's usher, it's all according to the condition, it's mutter.
Call if you tonight, I think it's mutter.
You might think? What do you mean you might think?
It's the fee.
Well, it is according to. Luffy just means according to. Well, why do you think it means you might have thought? There's no might have thought over here. It's just halacha.
So,
there's a fourth halacha. I just want to hear a fourth halacha. You know, there's a halacha you put on tefillin in the morning. Another halacha, you start Shabbos at Shkia or you know before Shkia. Tell me a halacha. I want to hear the last halacha.
It's also.
If you make it tanai, you think it means that it's asr?
I mean, because of the shoving, right?
This is separate than the shoving. This is after shoving.
But call means that if you make it tonight on this, it'll be
whatever we were talking about.
It'll be mutter.
Sounds like it's saying, even though I told you before it should be asr, but if you make it tonight, it'll be mutter. That kind of sounds like what the idea of it is, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we have the four cases clear. Halacha number 1 is the Tanna Kama's view. You can take from the Atzei Sukkah, the Samach of the Sukkah, but not Atzei Sukkah.
Usually says even from the Atzei Sukkah.
You can take even from the Atzei Sukkah. So that's halacha number 2. Halacha number 3.
Shimon agrees that Sukkah of Bechad means the Sukkah of a mitzvah.
Right. That what would be true?
That the Atzei cannot be taken.
That you can't. I told you normal you could, but that's talking about a Sukkah that's not part of the mitzvah. That's Pesach, Shavuos, whatever. But if it's Sukkahs of Bechad, it will be Asr. Now, halacha number 4 is saying, seemingly...
If you made it tonight on the Atzei
right,
Sukkah, you're allowed to take it.
then you're allowed. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Even Shal Mitzvah?
That's what it sounds like in the Hemshik. Just as you read it, just the one after the other, it sounds like it's saying. Sukkahs achag b'chag is a different halacha, but if you make it tonight, then it's okay. Okay? That's what it sounds like. But... that bothered the Gemora. Why did that bother the Gemora? What it sounds like, that it's saying that it's mutter, if you make it tanai, that bothered the Gemora. Why did that bother the Gemora? Because the Gemora brings proof that Atzei Sukkah are hektish. The Pasuk makes them hektish. If the Pasuk makes them hektish, the Gemora says, how can you come along with the tanai and say that it's mutter, meaning somehow stop the hektish? How can you do that? The Torah says hektish, you can't stop that with the tanai, can you? That's what the Gemara assumes. Am I saying things that make sense to you, or that were new? Am I saying something new, or you realize this part of the Gemara we learned?
This is part of the Gemara.
This is what we learned, right? I'm just recounting what we learned. So the Gemara says, Reb Menashe Breda Rabbah says what? That the fourth halacha is really what?
Part of the I think it's part of the second halacha.
You want to read what he says? No. That's a Reb Menashe who's speaking about the Mishnah. We're well beyond that. We read a Beitsa that's well beyond that. We're into that Beitsa, the 4 halachas of the Beitsa. We said there's a problem with the 4th halacha of the Beitsa. Don't go all the way back to Reb Menashe who discussed the Mishnah. That was the very, very beginning of the Gemora. I'm now well beyond that in the Gemora that's discussing the Beitsa.
Talking about an ordinary sukkah, gazebo.
Okay, so what's he really saying? Even though it sounded like halacha number 4 was coming to modify halacha number 3. That's halacha 3 said it's usr, but if you make it tonight, then it'll be mutter. that sounded like it's talking, like you were asking, is it talking about the sukkah of a mitzvah? We thought it was. Right? This is what you said before. It sounds like, as we read one halacha after the other, that halacha 4 is talking about halacha 3. That halacha 3 is true, but if you make it tonight, then it won't be true. But it's talking about the sukkah of a mitzvah. That's what we thought. But then we said that's impossible, because you're saying that a tanai will help stop the hektish, but the Torah says there is going to be hektish.
So we're talking about a regular structure.
So Rav Menashe Breita Rava is mechadish that you could have to say that the 4th case is going all the way back to what 1 and 2 are discussing. A sukkah that's not of the mitzvah.
4th case going back to.
But rather, what we were discussing at the beginning of the Beitsa, which was what? What kind of a sukkah were we discussing at the beginning of the Beitsa? Like Rashi said in the Mishnah, a sukkah of... That's right. What's called a sukkah de alma. A normal sukkah. A sukkah that has nothing to do with the mitzvah. So it'll come out according to this. Halacha 1 and 2 is talking about a sukkah that has nothing to do with the mitzvah. Halacha 3 digresses into what happens if it's a sukkah of a mitzvah, though. And halacha 4 goes back to discussing one more detail of the earlier sukkah that's not of a mitzvah.
Halacha 4 is going back to 1 and 2.
Exactly. Okay? And what's it saying? Now that we've decided that, what is it actually saying? That if you make a tanai, then it will be permissible. Now, if it's going back to the one that was discussed in halacha 1 and 2, Rabbi Shimon already said it was permissible. So what do you mean if you make a tanai it's permissible? He already said it's permissible. So it must be modifying not Rabbi Shimon's position, the Tanna Kama. Before Rabbi Shimon, the number 1 guy. I don't know who it is. I assume it's Rabbi Yehuda.
So Tanna Kama must...
The Gemora says Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold a muksa, and this other guy must hold a muksa, so that we Rabbi Yehuda. But otherwise, you could call him the Tanna Kama, whichever you like. But he said originally that what was his position? The first position in the Beitsa, which is actually our Mishnah, just like our Mishnah. What was his position? Same as our Mishnah.
So you're not allowed to take from the Eitzim.
You're not allowed to take from the Atzei Sukkah, right? You are allowed to take from what's Samach, but that's not important to our discussion right now. What's important to our discussion is he said you can't use Atzei Sukkah. Rabbi Shimon came along and said you could use Atzei Sukkah, right?
Yeah.
And the halacha number 4 now, according to the way we reinterpreted everything, according to Reb Menashe Breita Rava, because of our kasha, we had to reinterpret the Mishnah, the Beitsa. We're saying halacha 4 goes back and discusses the sukkah of sukkah de alma. And we're saying now if you make a tanai, that what? It'll be permissible. But Rabbi Shimon already said it's permissible, so it must be going back and modifying the Tanna Kama, who said it's not permissible, and that has to be understood now that the Tanna Kama said it's not permissible, but he'll agree with Rabbi Shimon that it could be permissible if what? If you make a tanai.
Wow. You're on a circle.
It's very logical, not really circles. Okay? This is what I'm trying to get you to see. It's a very logical progression. We thought halacha 4 was connected to halacha 3. They're both talking about a sukkah of a mitzvah. The problem was, how's it going to work? How you're going to have a tanai stopping the kedusha? So we had to restructure our whole understanding. If you want to call that going in circles, fine. But I would call that restructuring. Like when you renovate your house and you knock down a wall and you create a bigger living room or whatever. Is that called running around in circles, or you now restructured so that it works out better? Right? That's restructuring. People do that all the time these days, right?
Yeah.
renovations. Okay? So now that we've renovated and we say, no, halacha number 4 does not modify halacha 3. It's not talking about a sukkah of a mitzvah. It's going back on the first part of the Beitsa where we were talking about a sukkah de alma of Pesach and Shavuos, and we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda, who normally said you can't use atzei sukkah, why? Because they're muksa, that even after the sukkah falls down, he won't let you use them. Why? Because they're muksa, right? Now, was he only talking about on Yom Tov, or was he talking even Chol HaMoed? At the time, I thought he was only talking about Yom Tov. But I see from this, now this Rashi is informing me that no. Look what Rashi says down below. V'ha atzei sukkah nami. This atzei sukkah nami, concerning the atzei sukkah also, since he made a tanai. Now who's talking about a tanai on the atzei sukkah? When did we talk about a tanai on atzei sukkah? You know when we talked about a tanai on atzei sukkah? No. Where do you see Rabbi Shimon talking about a tanai? Just show me, and I'll admit to you. Show me. If you believe that, show me. Well, we just have halacha 4. Halacha 4 is where I see a tanai mentioned, right?
Yes.
Because if I go to the next Beitsa where I see a tanai mentioned also, you know what the tanai there is? In the next Beitsa when I talk about tanai? You know what that next Beitsa was talking about when it talked about a tanai? The next Beitsa. Are you aware there's a second Beitsa now on the page? V'hatanya, last word in the line. There's a little asterisk there. V'hatanya. Sichacha kehilchasa, etc., etc., etc. I hope you review it. It says at the end of that Beitsa, like 5 or 6 lines later, V'im hisne alehan hakol afi tano. Sounds exactly like halacha number 4 of the previous Beitsa.
Yes.
The difference is here it means what? If you made a tanai on what?
On the decoration.
The decoration, not the atzei sukkah.
Similar case, but not talking about it.
It sounds similar, but it's not true. And there Rashi even explained you cannot make this tanai, because what tanai does he make on the decorations? I'm not separating myself from this. Remember that?
Yep.
And Rashi said, can you say that on the atzei sukkah? No, because to not separate means I have a right to take it. You have a right to take it, Beta Shmashos? No. That would be called taking apart a sukkah on Yom Tov, Safik Yom Tov. So Rashi says it can't be on that. So when Rashi's now telling me at the very bottom of the page, he made a Tanai on Atzei Sukkah, where does he see anyone making a Tanai on Atzei Sukkah? He's talking about the first Beitsa, not the second Beitsa.
First Beitsa.
In the first Beitsa, where the last halacha of the 4 halachas of the first Beitsa was what? Making a Tanai.
Yeah.
And you know what he made a Tanai on there? There were no decorations in that Beitsa.
Wood of the sukkah.
On the wood, on the Atzei Sukkah. Except it's not talking about a sukkah of a mitzvah, it's talking about a sukkah de alma. That's what I thought. Okay, we'll have to figure out how to put these two Rashis together. But at least I have a place where I found a guy making a Tanai on the Atzei Sukkah. Right?
Yeah.
And it was going according to Rabbi Yehuda, we found out. Right? The Rabbi Yehuda in the first Beitsa, or the Tanakama, whatever you want to call him, he said what? You normally can't use Atzei Sukkah.
Yeah.
And the 4th halacha would be coming to say, but if you make a Tanai, then you could. Even Rabbi Yehuda will let you use the Atzei Sukkah if you made a Tanai. But what Tanai are we talking about here? Not the same Tanai as later, I won't separate myself from it. The Gemora said before, what he made a Tanai was, if it'll fall down, I want to use it. Remember that?
Yes. Maybe I bread at 4 o'clock, so what time should I bench at?
You need to bench.
Yeah.
You finish eating at 4?
So
We started eating 4.
So you're in the 5 to
What?
5 to 4.
So when did you finish eating?
We're around 4 o'clock.
Took you 5 minutes to eat, that's all?
Yeah.
Pretty quick eater.
72 minutes.
So you had 72 minutes, you have another more than 12 minutes. You have like approximately 20 minutes. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Okay. Are we together?
Yeah, it's good. That's all good because they would have Chazar before.
Alright, are we together now? Rashi saying at the bottom of the page is what sparked this whole discussion, that there's somebody making a Tanai in Atzei Sukkah. Rashi feels obligated to start talking about that at the end of the Gemora. Why? Because we had a guy who made a Tanai on the Esrogim and he could eat it as soon as he finished his mitzvah. But the Atzei Sukkah, when he made a Tanai, what happened? Let's see the last Rashi. Kivan da Asni Alehu. He made a Tanai, which we found in the first Beitsa, on the Atzei Sukkah, that did what? To be able to use them Chol HaMoed. Okay, now maybe that's the Tanai we saw before. I'm not sure if we can fit that into the earlier Gemora, but Rashi maybe is just saying, once we learned that you can make a Tanai on Atzei Sukkah for Chol HaMoed, you can make this Tanai also. I want to get benefit from it. That's pretty much what he said before. If it falls down, I want to use it. Rashi's saying, no, you could say it's also going on Chol HaMoed. Like, I want to use it Chol HaMoed. Okay, so now let's continue in the Rashi. So if he makes a Tanai that he wants to use the sukkah, the wood of the sukkah Chol HaMoed, it'll be like what? It's keh.
Like he separated your Mishar. Like he separated, right?
You know what's Rashi is quoting here? Do you remember the few lines earlier in the Gemora? We're talking about the very end of the Gemora, where we had Ravasi and Rav and Ravasi.
Yeah,
it said he frisha. Try to find these words that Rashi's now saying. He frisha liyom rishon.
Hifresh Shiva Itmar, Hifresh.
Yep.
Hifresh Shiva is circling to Shiva Hayomim.
That's right. Rashi's paraphrasing that. If I tell you he separated 7 esrogim for 7 days, that means, and I think Rashi might have said this even earlier, that what he really did was he said what? This esrog number 1 will be for Yom Rishon. Esrog number 2, I want to be for Yom Sheni. That's what he did. When it says he separated 7 esrogim for the 7 days, what he really did was he separated each one for a separate day. So that's what Rashi's alluding to now. This is a part of the first case, where we said the esrogim could be separated for all 7 days. What he really did was separate each one for a separate day. So he's talking about one case of that. Let's say he was mafresh it for 1 day. What do we say about mafresh an esrog for 1 day? What happens if you're mafresh an esrog for day 1, let's say?
Also for that day, but tomorrow will be more.
So it's a machlokas Rav and Ravasi, first of all. Don't ignore Rav. Rav said you can eat it as soon as you yotzi the mitzvah with that on that first day. You can eat it right away.
It's also the whole day. You have to wait till the next.
That's
day.
right. Ravasi says no, it is usher the whole day, but the next day would be mutter. So Rashi's saying, if you made a Tanai to use the Atzei Sukkah to get hana from them on Chol HaMoed, it will be like a guy who was mafresh the esrog for 1 day. And therefore, what happens? Since what?
Since the first Ben Hashmoshos is
it became
Hekdesh Ben Holy.
Okay, so we know now Rashi's talking about a new case, not the case that we had before. Because when we talked about baking a Tanai before, it was in case number 4 of the Beitsa, and it was going back on Sukkah d'Alma. There's no hektish there. So Rashi can't be talking about that. Now I see Rashi can't be talking. I thought maybe Rashi referring back to there, where I saw someone making a Tanai on Atzi Sukkah. But we said there, he was making a Tanai on a Sukkah D'Alma, to get Rabbi Yehuda to agree that it was mutter. But now I see Rashi's talking about Hektish. He can't be talking about a Tanai on the Atzi Sukkah in that first Beitsa, because that was not a Sukkah of a Mitzvah. There's no Hektish. Here Rashi says no. Bein Hashmashos, what happened?
Kama Kodesh.
Kaddish Ko Amros. You said that what happens if it becomes Kodesh Bein Hashmashos Kama, then Amros, you said
The is Katse Ushiva.
right. It got set aside for all 7 days. Oops. All 7 days it becomes. All right, we'll stop here for a minute. The bench.
Alright, let's go.
You can just click the button there for a minute.
Should I?
Yeah?
You click the button.
Yeah.
The third one is they both agree, they all agree about the halacha of Sukkah.
Sukkah Sachag Bichag.
Yeah. And the fourth one, he takes us back to the Mishnah.
That's what Gemora said.
Right.
Because you either can't make a Tanai to stop Hektish, so the only thing you can make a Tanai on is the Muksa aspect, which was discussed in the first two halachas between Tanakam and Rabbi Shimon.
So,
They were arguing about what happens if the sukkah falls down, can you use the wood, and whether that entails using muksa or not. So there we said, if you make a Tanai, then even Rabbi Shimon will allow you to use it. I'm sorry, even Rabbi Huda, even the Tanakam will let you use it.
right.
Okay. Now we end up saying, in the end, there is a Tanai that actually can stop the Kedusha, but not directly, indirectly. If you make a Tanai on the noise sukkah, the adornment of the sukkah, and you basically prevent it from becoming part of the sukkah, bein hashmashos, which you have a right to do, and there's no problem taking it because it won't be destroying the structure, so therefore what you really ended up doing was you prevented it from part of the sukkah. The Kedusha was never chal, and also was never pushed away as an object of muksa.
So is that the last part? It's never...
It never became part of the sukkah.
Right, right,
So because of that, there was no Kedusha that went upon it.
right.
Equally true, it never got pushed away for the mitzvah. We say now there's such a thing as being pushed off for the mitzvah. Dedicated to the mitzvah. We're saying these adornments never became dedicated to the mitzvah. Because I didn't separate myself from them at the time when they could have become part of the mitzvah.
I understand the first part, they don't become part of the sukkah, that's for
Right,
sure.
and because of that, the second halacha is true that they don't get kedusha.
Right.
But there's a third halacha, they also don't get designated for a mitzvah. They were never allocated for the mitzvah, which is a third halacha. Let's say the esrog. We said afterwards the esrog can be dedicated to the mitzvah.
Right.
But it has nothing to do with kedusha, just the fact that you dedicated to it a mitzvah. Here, the adornments, even though you hung them up, but if you make this declaration, you don't want to separate yourself from them, what you're really saying is, as we said, that they don't become part of the sukkah, they don't become part of the mitzvah of sukkahs.
Yeah,
So just as equally as true as they don't get kedusha, they also don't get pushed off for the mitzvah.
because you're tonight, basically. When you use them, you haven't pushed them aside.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Okay, now, what the Gemora afterwards says, when the Gemora says, what's the difference between this and this other case of Rav Asi and Rashi says there, what are we really asking? Let's just go back and examine that again. It's the middle line of the wide lines of Rashi, the fourth line from where the wide lines start, and there's 7 lines of the wide lines of Rashi, so the very middle one. It's 4 lines from the top of the wide lines and 4 lines from the bottom as well. Right in the middle. Maishana Meha. So how is this going to differ? How is this case something we discussed before in the Gemora? We want to know how does that differ from this, the lo amar be'esrog, that we don't say by esrog that because of the beina shmashos kama, because of the very first beina shmashos, right? We don't say by the esrog, the very first beina shmashos, litz katzoi kol shiva, pushes it away for all 7 days. Seemingly, Rashi says, we did say that by the Atzei Sukkah. That Atzei Sukkah, they get pushed away for all 7 days. Rashi understood that to be part of the Gemora's question. That the Gemora is saying, what's the difference between this and that? What it really means is, how come by the Sukkah, the very first Beina Shmashos, pushed it away for the mitzvah of Sukkah, and it's now usher all 7 days? Whereas by Esrog we don't say that. Ella, only rather, L'chad Yoma, only for 1 day. For, let's say, Ravasi, the entire day. According to Rav, not even the entire day. But at least, the more Machmer Shita says it's only also for 1 day. Mi ki asni aleha L'chad Yoma, as long as you made a Tanai for 1 day. So, if you made a Tanai, basically, you can say it's just for 1 day. Let's say Esrog number 1, I made a Tanai, it should be just for the first day. So what happens? It's just for the first day. That's all that happens. After the first day I can eat it, according to everybody. Right? Rav says even earlier in the day, but at least according to Rav Asya, at the end of the day I can eat it. So if I set it aside for 1 day, my Tanai worked. Right?
Yep.
That it's only also for 1 day. What's the difference between that and Atzei Sukkah? We don't say that. By Atzei Sukkah we say, if you set it aside, it's also all 7 days.
Surely it shouldn't be, so it should be the same.
It should be the same. If you make a Tanai, now Rashi says, what Tanai would you make? So that's why we have to go down to that Rashi that we were hovering over before. The second to last line in Rashi says, Viha, but behold, Atzei Sukkah, when it comes to Atzei Sukkah, since I made a Tanai that I lehanos mehem b'chol hamoed, let's say I make a Tanai, I want to get pleasure from these Atzei Sukkah, at least chol hamoed. Right?
Yeah.
So that's like saying what? Let's say it in our own words. Just like the Esrog. I could say the Esrog's dedicated to the mitzvah for day 1, but day 2 is already out, I want to get benefit from it. That's really what I'm saying. When I make it just for 1 day, I'm really saying day 1 I want to use it for the mitzvah, but after that I want to get pleasure from it. I want to eat it. So he's saying I could say the same tonight for a sukkah, really, if you think about it, right? I could say I want it to be for the first day, but chol hamoed, I want to get pleasure from it. So why shouldn't that be like the same case as an esrog? I'm dedicating it for the mitzvah for 1 day, but then I only want it to be for 1 day. After that I want to get pleasure from it. Chol hamoed, I want to get pleasure from it. You say, what happens if you do that? It doesn't help. Right?
You need 7 sukkahs. You need 7 sukkahs.
Let's say I'm going away. I'm going to go to my in-laws for chol hamoed. I'm going to go there.
Right.
So I don't need the sukkah then. I'll have someone else's sukkah. That's like having another esrog. I have another sukkah to go to.
So you'd burn yours on the second day.
I'll bring along the wood, the firewood. Can I do that? Seems like you can't, right? He's saying, why not? Why do we say that it's locked into that? It's dedicated to the mitzvah all 7 days. That's it. I can't use it all 7 days. Where did that come from? I see by esrog I can be specific about pointing it at the mitzvah for 1 day, and then after that it's off duty. Why can't I do that by Atzei Sukkah? I want it to be for 1 day. After that I'll use another sukkah, whatever. I want to use this wood for I want to get pleasure from it afterwards. Why can't they be just like the esrog? That's what the Gemora is asking. That's what Rashi's explaining the Gemora's question. It should have been logically similar. So the Gemora ends up answering, you know what the Gemora ends up answering? it's not just your kavana for one day that made it for one day. You know what that's why it made it for only one day? Because you sort of hooked it up to the electricity for one day. But at the end of one day, by Shkia, Hashem takes out the plug of that electricity. Because there's no more mitzvah.
There's the nights.
There's the night. So automatically the electricity is cut off. So therefore it never turns on back again. Once you take the plug out, fine, the plug is out. But by Sukkah, we're saying you never take the plug out. You want to direct it at one day, so you plug it in for one day, it's all hooked up. Now, you want it to stop after one day, it can't just stop by itself. It has to be a combination of my wanting it to be for one day, plus there's a reality that it gets unhooked from the mitzvah by Hashem at the end of that day. But if by Esrog that happens, but by Atzei Sukkah that will never happen, because nothing's detaching it. That's what the Gemora is saying. That's what I think the Gemora is saying. Let's see the last few Rashi, see if it backs that up. The mafsiki leilos miyamim. That by Esrog you say a new idea, that it's not just that I pointed it at one day, it's that plus the fact that the nights are off. The nights are mafsik. I'll pour it into the... No, I'll pour it in... I think I'm going to pour it into the milk thing. Just take the milk thing with me.
Like this? Seriously?
Oh.
Yeah, I love it.
If I don't have to...
Let me help you with that.
That would be great. You're probably more dexterity than me anyways.
Oh no, I almost go drop. You get from Hashem.
All right, thank you.
Not,
all right.
It's not me.
Let's see the next Rashi then. There's only a few words there. Not a big Kiddush. She'ein mitzvaso b'layla. There is no mitzvah at night. So that's what the Gemara ends up saying. That you need a combination of factors. Your kavanah for one day plus Hashem is unplugging it at night. Then, okay, then it stopped. But if you want it for one day, but then it's plugged in and the mitzvah never stops, you can't just say it's off duty now. It continues on.
We kind of know